Well, before we start.
It is the 1st of March, and I want to welcome the members, staff, and any visitors that we may have to our third meeting of the calendar year. It is a pleasure to be here. We're trying to get together again someday, and as soon as we figure that out, how to do that, and what we're going to do is to all meet in the same place, and that'll probably happen in Albany. I'll look forward to that. Sarah actually pulled the trigger before I did. I wanted to welcome Christina Coughlin to her first DASNY board meeting. It's a pleasure to have you as the State Education Department designee. We will thank the commissioner at some point in the future for sending you to us. Thank you for being here. We are going to move then directly to the agenda, unless there are other things that members have that are housekeeping kinds of matters. Hearing none.
Fine, Mr. Chair, I will just note on the record for this main board meeting as well, in case members of the public, I see we have some on the line or just joining us. As I noted for the Finance Committee meeting, we were unable to have our Governance Committee meetings yesterday for DASNY subsidiaries, as well as the Finance Committee meeting as previously scheduled for yesterday afternoon due to weather-related travel delays on the part of some of our members. So we were unable to get a quorum together to conduct that business. So sorry to interrupt your flow, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to get that on the record for those who may be watching this at a later point in time, or members of the public who are joining.
Sarah, you consistently make me look good. I appreciate it very much. We will go directly into the agenda. You all have had a chance to review the minutes of the 11 January meeting. Are there any questions? Are there any proposed revisions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve those minutes?
Make motion.
Thank you. That's you, Joan?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks very much. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Beryl. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Does anyone wish to abstain? Then the motion passes, the minutes are approved, and it passes unanimously. Thank you all. The second agenda item is the Finance Committee report. We go to the chairman of that committee, Mr. Romsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After, as Sarah pointed out, after a weather-related delay, we actually met this morning, a few moments ago. After adopting the meeting minutes from the January meeting and the Finance Committee meeting, we advanced to discuss two financings. The Interagency Development Council, I believe I got that right. And also, we voted unanimously to recommend that be approved at today's full board meeting. And then we also advanced to discuss the school district bond program offering that's on today's agenda. And similarly on that matter, we also recommend that be approved at today's full board meeting. We also reviewed and accepted the Finance Committee charter that was existing. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair, unless you or any of the other fine members of the board have any questions or concerns. That will conclude my report.
And a fine job it was. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Jerry? Hearing none, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is the consideration of a resolution to proceed with the approval of the Interagency Council of Developmental Disabilities Agency. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind tab 3 is the transaction summary for IAC transaction, and Alex Sardine of DASNY will be presenting. Alex?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning again, everybody. The board is being asked to authorize a resolution to proceed with the financing of one or more series of tax-exempt and or taxable fixed and or variable rate bonds with a maturity not to exceed 26 years in an amount not to exceed 28 million on behalf of the Interagency Council of Developmental Disabilities. Proceeds from the Series 2023 bonds are expected to be used to refinance existing bank loans and to reimburse certain institutions for cash expenditures that were used to renovate or acquire certain properties used to provide services for the developmentally disabled. This will be the 16th financing for the Interagency Council Loan Program. This will be a pooled financing on behalf of 7 participants with 17 projects, all of which have prior property approvals or PPAs. Each borrower will have their own loan agreement. The security features for this transaction will include 1, a pledge of all public funds attributable to each financed project. 2, a standby intercept of these public funds attributable to each project. 3, a debt service reserve funds of 6 months of debt service. And 4, a mortgage on real property acceptable to DASNY where available. The 7 borrowers in this pool are all 501c3 organizations that have a history of providing services to New York State residents who have developmental disabilities. These services are essential and state mandated. Just a bit of background on the PPA process. In order to initiate the development of a project to serve individuals with developmental disabilities, the not-for-profit provider is required to complete a Certificate of Need, or CON, which is reviewed by OPWDD for compliance and need before approving the PPA. The PPA evidences OPWDD's commitment to funding the project, and ultimately the projects are supported through contracts and reimbursement agreements with OPWDD. The PPAs are in place for all 17 proposed projects, and the projects are expected to have a replacement operator component. We anticipate the rating of AA2 from Moody's for this transaction. The state commits to supporting the development and operation of the project if it is completed and in conformance with the PPA. This commitment demonstrates the essentiality of the community-based services to the developmentally disabled population in New York State. The 7 borrowers in this pool have had the experience of providing needed services to this population. Accordingly, the staff report recommends the adoption of a resolution to proceed with the financing in an amount not to exceed $28 million. Mr. Chairman.
Alex, thank you. Well done. Are there any questions for Alex regarding this transaction? Alex, mine isn't a question, but for the record, and we've already established this, you and I, the loan agreements are individual. They are applicable to each borrower, and the debt service requirements are therefore applicable to each borrower separately. That's correct, I think.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir. Thank you. Again, are there questions for Alex? Hearing none. There is one thing that I wanted to point out. I'm sure you all saw it. In the resolution, the adoption, it provides that the adoption of the resolution imposes no duty on the part of DASNY to issue obligations for or on behalf of the Interagency Council for developmental disability agencies. Thank you all for adding that. It's a good decision to do that. May I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction?
I make the motion.
I think Lisa beat you to it, Joe. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So you can yeah. So thank you, Lisa, for the motion, and thank you, Joan, for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Does anyone wish to abstain? Hearing none, the motion is approved. The resolution passes. I'm sorry, the motion passes. The resolution is approved, and it is approved unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, that minor delay was to give Alex some heartburn. First deal might not get back.
And it did.
And it did. Behind tab 4 is the school district's revenue bond financing program. The transaction summary is behind tab 4. We have Dave Ostrander of DASNY, Melissa Bennett of Barclay Damon, and Patrick McGlasson of McGlasson Law Firm presenting this transaction. Dave, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. The board is being asked to adopt the necessary documents to authorize multiple series of bonds in an amount not to exceed $1.5 billion to be sold through multiple negotiated offerings on behalf of various New York State school districts. Proceeds from this authorization may be used to refinance the bond anticipation notes or bands of various New York State school districts, to finance new money projects on behalf of these districts or to refund bonds issued by DASNY through the school district program. Staff is requesting authorization to meet current demand from school districts for a new money and ban refinancing pool that will be closing in June, as well as to accommodate additional demand that could occur later in the year. School district participation in the DASNY pool is primarily rate driven. When school districts issue bonds, they can receive building aid reimbursement from the state in one of two ways. School districts can issue their own general obligation bonds, in which case they receive building aid based on the statewide average interest rate from the previous year. School districts can also issue through DASNY, in which case they receive building aid based on their actual cost of borrowing. And since the reimbursement rate from the state lags behind current interest rates, what we typically see is in a declining interest rate environment, more districts will issue on their own. In a rising interest rate environment, which is where we are now, they typically come through DASNY. Since the first issuance under the school districts program back in 2002, DASNY has issued over $7.7 billion in bonds on behalf of 325 school districts across the state. Our 2022 issuance was the largest ever at $759.1 million, providing long-term financing for 66 districts. And for this year, we expect the new money pool to exceed that amount from 2022, based on the initial feedback that we've received from the school district's financial advisors. The structure and security features will remain the same as previous school district programs. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Melissa and Patrick to discuss in more detail.
Thanks, Dave, and good morning, everyone. As noted, before you for your consideration is the adoption of the 2023 supplemental resolution pursuant to the amended and restated master resolution in order to provide financing to school districts for school construction projects that are eligible for building aid and approved by the Commissioner of Education. The master resolution provides for the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds in an unlimited principal amount. Since 2004, multiple series and supplemental resolutions have been adopted. Each series issued under the master resolution are special obligations of DASNY, payable solely out of the revenues, which consist generally of the payments to be made by school districts on their bonds issued to DASNY and payments to be made by the state comptroller to DASNY out of funds otherwise payable to a particular school district if that school district has not made a payment on its bonds issued to DASNY. Each series of bonds issued under the master resolution is secured separately from all other series. As Dave mentioned, the 2023 supplemental resolution authorizes up to an additional $1.5 billion of bonds as and when needed to satisfy the needs of the participating school districts. And it also authorizes customary documents for a negotiated public offering of bonds. As in the past, while credit enhancement is not required, municipal bond insurance historically has been cost-effective for certain bonds and may be utilized for certain bonds this year. I'll now turn it over to Patrick to discuss the financing agreement.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As with prior series of school district revenue bonds issued to finance or refinance projects for school districts, each school district will enter into a financing agreement with DASNY with the approval of the Commissioner of Education. Under the financing agreements, the school districts are obligated to make payments to DASNY in an amount sufficient to cover principal and interest on the applicable series of bonds when due, regardless of whether the school district received state aid payments. In addition, each school district will issue bonds to DASNY backed by the full faith credit pledge of the school district, which requires the school district to levy taxes in amounts sufficient to enable the school district to pay the school district bond securing its obligation under the financing agreement. The school district's obligation to make the payments due under the financing agreement and other amounts due to DASNY under the financing agreements will be supported by the statutory intercept mechanism of the program. Neither the DASNY bonds nor the school district's obligation under the financing agreements are secured by a lien on any facilities of the school districts or any other property and may not be accelerated as a remedy for default. The projects to be financed or refinanced with the proceeds of the school district revenue bonds will be identified in each financing agreement, and prior to the issuance of school district revenue bonds will have each been approved by the voters of the school district and the Commissioner of Education. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And Patrick and Melissa, thank you for joining us for this meeting. Are there any questions for David, Alyssa, or Patrick? We are being asked to consider supplemental resolution 2023-1. You all have had a chance to take a look at it. It was sent electronically. Okay. Then there being no questions, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction?
I will move.
Thank you very much, Beryl. Is there a second? Wellington, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Does anyone want to abstain? Hearing nothing on the last two questions. The motion carries, the resolution passes, and it passes unanimously. Where are we, Mr. President? Your report.
Mr. Chairman, board members, great to see you today. Several items on my president's report will need resolutions, but first I want to mention that we recently hired a new head of intergovernmental affairs, Dan Brown. We've been working on getting Dan on board for the last couple of months. He comes with a deep experience around New York State. He worked with Sully Polytechnic Institute, the Office of General Services, New York State Homes and Community Renewal, and the Office of the Albany County Controller. Has great experience, knows the legislative process well, and will be working with Charlie Williams and Nadine on all of our legislative issues. So we're really glad to have Dan on board. He came just in time as the session's now starting, so he'll be monitoring all of that work for us. I don't know if Dan is with us yet or not. Is Dan in the room?
Not yet.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Oh,
No,
not here yet.
not yet. Starts March 9th.
Oh, okay, so you don't pay him for the day, okay? My next item is our annual approval of our fee schedule. As you know, every year we have to do this approval prior to April 1st. And so that's presented for you behind my president's report. There's a resolution as well as the schedule itself. No significant changes to that schedule. Again, this is kind of perfunctory, but we need the board to approve that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You all have had a chance to see the fee structure proposal. It, in my book, is behind tab 6. You say there are no significant fee increases or decreases.
No, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you. Everybody's had a chance then to review it. Are there any questions about it? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the fee structure? Thank you. Thank you, Wellington. Is there a second?
Joan, second.
Is that you, Joan?
It is.
Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded properly. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Does anyone wish to abstain? There being no responses to those two questions, the fee structure proposal passes, and it passes unanimously, or is approved and is approved unanimously. Mr. President.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next item on the agenda is again an annual item that we have to go through, and that is our 23-24 proposed operating budget. You've seen a copy of this a couple of months ago. Ms. Ellis will talk about a couple of minor changes that we made to it, but prior to her presentation, I want to let you know that we are in active negotiations with our union. We're fairly close to finalizing those negotiations. When those are finalized, I expect we will have to bring back to the board an adjustment to the operating budget for the year to take into account any adjustments we make for union negotiations. Just want the board to be aware that this is the best information we have as we see it today, but we will likely bring in either May or June a revised budget to include those items. With that, Ms. Ellis, can you give us a quick presentation on the operating budget and highlight those two items that have been adjusted?
Sure, thank you. Included in your board book is an updated materials reflecting the 2023-24 revised proposed operating budget of $132,020,890. The updated materials reflect minor revisions to the projected results for the current year in the proposed budget presented at the January meeting based on updated information. These changes include an increase to salaries to reflect slower than anticipated recruitments in fiscal year 23, adjusting for active recruitments and anticipated departures. An increase to health insurance based on updated projections of $262,000, and Social Security increased as a result of the increase to the salaries budget. There were minor adjustments to the maintenance and operation based on updated projections for rents and utilities. And our revenue projections were updated to reflect no additional private client financings through the close of the fiscal year, resulting in a reduction of $450,000 in revenue for 2022-23. Additionally, we adjusted the number of projected deals for 23-24, leading to a $500,000 reduction for the 23-24 fiscal year. All of this resulted in a slight decrease in the projected deficit for this year of $656,000 to $656,000, and a decrease in the projected surplus for 23-24 to $1,557,000. For your consideration is a resolution to adopt the 23-24 budget as presented. It anticipates 490 FTEs, and the total budget is $432,020,890. Any questions?
Are there questions for Kimberly? Kim, you should know that we very much appreciate the amount of time and effort that goes into this. The number of revisions must be extraordinary. And now we come and now we come down to the vote. May I have a motion, please, to approve the operating budget for the fiscal year? So, Wellington, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joan. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Does anyone oppose the motion? Are there any abstentions? Hearing no answers to the last two questions, the operating budget is approved, and it is approved unanimously. We understand, Kimberly, that you may have to come back with some adjustments, but those adjustments, in your view, we have no control over that right now. And in your view, these are not major adjustments.
Right, any adjustments will be reflective of how our collective bargaining turns out. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Mr. Chairman. Finally, I was hoping this morning that Mr. Chairman and I would be talking about the great retirement celebration we had yesterday. Unfortunately, we had to postpone that based on weather. However, I just want to highlight that we have not had this celebration for the past 3 years, so we will reschedule it as quickly and efficiently as possible. As a side note, our DASNY family up in Albany is enjoying breakfast this morning. In fact, we'd ordered it already, so everybody came in and had a chance to enjoy that. But I did want to go ahead and pass a resolution, ask you to pass a resolution that honors those retirees, milestone employees. And Mr. Chairman and I will present those when the activity is rescheduled. We've had a lot of retirements, as you know, as you can imagine, over the past several years. And the milestone celebration is always fun for me to see people who've been at DASNY for a long time and the work that they've done. So we look forward to rescheduling that. We'll get that rescheduled. That resolution, Mr. Chairman, is behind tab 6.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Have you all had a chance to see the resolution? You all are talking all over each other.
Somewhere here.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just,
See it.
yeah. Well, we will assume that the members have seen it. It's a very celebratory event for those of us who've gone for every year that we've been with DASNY. It's an amazing series of events, actually, in one with service anniversary celebrants, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And I think this year we have somebody who retired at 35 years.
We have a couple active 35 years on the phone now, Mr. Koopman and Nicole.
Oh, Nickel.
Nikolai. We have a couple of 35 still active at DASNY.
Outstanding. We are not standing out of it. Are there any questions about the purpose of the resolution? It recognizes both anniversary celebrants as well as retirees. The number is big because we haven't done it. The combined number is a big one because we haven't done it in 3 years. I was looking forward to yesterday's celebration and it just didn't work out because of weather. May I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Joan. Beryl? Oh, Lisa, thank you. I'll give it a second.
Okay, you know, the women, we're all kind of.
Yeah.
Keep things moving.
You can say that. I can't say that. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Does anyone wish to abstain? Hearing no responses to those two questions, the motion passes unanimously. And the President and I will come back to you to talk a bit about it. You may not know this, but DASNY issues really wonderfully worded certificates to each retiree and to certain of the service anniversary celebrants.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. What I'd like to do when we report on this, whenever we can, is to just bring a couple of samples of those certificates that are given to the employees. This is unusual at organizations like this. And I am frankly very proud to have been a part of it. I so regretted having it postponed on yesterday. The next item on the agenda is the finance report. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unless anyone has any specific questions regarding the monthly financial report, I'll just quickly go through the highlights. It reflects activity for December and January. Hasn't been much change since the last report. We received 1.2 million in private client financing fees through January against a budgeted amount of 1.8 million. Percentage of direct hours charged to public client programs is slightly up at 95.6% against a budgeted amount of 93.1%. Total operating expenses are under projection by 4.6 million, primarily due to salaries. Any questions?
Oh, thank you, Kim. Are there questions for Kim? Hearing none, we should have a drum roll now.
I have one more report. I just want to highlight that also included in your report is a quarterly investment report for the record. If there's any on that report, it's for the period ending 12/31/2022.
Kim, thank you. Again, are there questions for Kimberly? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the operating budget for the fiscal year?
We've done that. We're good.
Oh, that's right. We did do that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So we move on now to the finance report. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not keeping up. Please don't put that in the minutes. The next item on the agenda is the public finance report. Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've got the standard public finance reports in your materials. Since the last board meeting, we priced and closed the Gold Coast Library transaction. Brief market update, total year-to-date long-term new issue supply for 2023 is approximately $40.5 billion. That's down about 29% from last year's comparable issuance. This week's supply is expected to be lighter than recent averages at about 4.6 billion. Tax exempt bond yields were unchanged yesterday, with the 10-year AAA MMD remaining at 2.59% and the 30-year AAA MMD remaining at 3.56%. U.S. government bond yields were also flat yesterday, with the 10-year Treasury yield remaining at 3.92% and the 30-year Treasury yield remaining at 3.93%. Municipal bond funds reported outflows for the week ending February 22nd, following the week prior where there were outflows as well. Since the January 11th board meeting, the 1-year MMD rate has increased by 51 basis points, the 10-year by 18 basis points, and the 30-year by 21 basis points. And during that same time period, the 10-year treasury has increased by 29 basis points and the 30-year increased by 17 basis points. The Federal Open Market Committee did meet in February. There was a 25 basis point rate increase. The next Fed meeting is expected later in the month of March. Also included in the members' materials is the annual credit enhancement report for the not-for-profit portfolio. On the first page of the report, there's some pie charts, and they basically show the amount of fixed rate debt versus variable rate debt for the not-for-profit portfolio. No surprises here. The percentage of fixed rate debt is growing year over year, while the variable rate portfolio is declining. I note that the total amount of debt for not-for-profit institutions has increased slightly from 15.7 billion in 2021 to 16.6 billion in 2022. The pie charts at the bottom of the page show outstanding debt by type of credit enhancement. Again, no surprises. The percentage of unenhanced debt, including private placements, has grown slightly since last year, and debt with credit enhancement has declined. On page 2, you can see the type of credit enhancement and the specific providers for the variable rate portfolio for the not-for-profit institutions. I'd note that the amount of variable rate debt decreased slightly year over year from 1.775 billion in 2021 to 1.675 billion in 2022. The next pages of the report show the same information in table format. The last page of the report shows the renewal dates for letters of credit in connection with private clients for the next several years. And I would like to thank Steve Kosher, Alex Sardine, and Justin Sproul for their work in producing this report. One other update that I had for the board is I had mentioned at a previous meeting that we're looking at our TELP process with an eye towards making it more consistent with our bond process. DASNY inherited the TELP program from MICFA in the mid-1990s. Back in the day, staff proposed to the board a $500 million annual cap and authorization for TELP for healthcare institutions and a $200 million annual authorization and cap in connection with TELP for higher ed and other not-for-profit institutions, with the caveat that large TELP transactions, that is $10 million or more, would be brought to the board for consideration. So back in the day, we were thinking that 10 million was going to be an extraordinarily large TELP transaction. Looking at the situation now, we believe that these annual caps and the $10 million threshold are arbitrary. We would recommend that we eliminate these caps and that all TELP transactions be brought to the board, similar to bond deals. This would eliminate a lot of record keeping for staff and a lot of diligence for counsel regarding due authorization issues. It would also ensure that if there are unusual features in a small, that is less than $10 million TELP financing, that the board would be made aware. There's nothing for consideration by the members at today's meeting. I just wanted to give you this background now, and basically if this seems reasonable, we would bring a resolution to the board next month memorializing this.
I have a question.
Okay, thank you. Did someone have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, can you not hear me? So what's the volume of TELP transactions per year?
So the volume has been very, very low.
Okay.
Recently, yes.
Okay, that's it.
And I have a quick question about our overall, our bond issuing going forward, or at least for the first quarter of this year. Do you see it improving? I know interest rates are not stabilizing at any rapid degree that I am aware of. And I think our pipeline is a little light. The bond market in February was appalling, actually, not DASNY related, which did as well, if not better than other markets, but overall. So what do you see the rest of the quarter and the next quarter looking like as far as issuance?
So, Beryl, your observations are on the mark. The market has been down. Our pipeline has been slower than usual as well, but we do see transactions coming through. And we'll continue to update the board with our active inquiry report in the members' materials.
Yeah, no, I think, again, it's not specific to DASNY by any means, and if anything, DASNY is doing better than many other issuers. So it's just an overall view of the market. And I think it also makes your second point about increasing the $10 million level on the grants even more important, because it gives another way, another avenue to finance at least individual projects or individual discrete things. So
Absolutely.
just hoping for better times for the bond market the rest of the year.
Are there other questions?
Please. Ms. Lee, you just, newbie question, sorry about that, but you described that one of the benefits of the item you're discussing as potentially reducing the amount of due diligence and record keeping that goes on. Can you describe real quickly, for me at least, what the difference is?
Sure. Well, if there's, and let's assume here we have a number of TELP transactions in any given year. With the broad authorization and the notion that only certain TELP transactions are going to the board, those that are greater than 10 million, the staff has to keep track of all of those items. And then bond counsel actually has to look back, and for their due authorization opinion, they have to go back and sort of do that review as well to make sure that we are sort of in conformance with resolutions that date back to the 1990s, where we said we're going to have an annual authorization cap of $500 million for the healthcare TELP transactions and $200 million for the higher ed ones.
So the difference is not in terms of understanding the issuance itself, it's a matter of tracking which ones.
That's absolutely right. That is absolutely right.
But, so I have another question, sorry. So if we're doing limited transactions, are we using our TELP dollars throughout the course of the year?
I'm sorry, are we using our TELP?
Available dollars for education.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that there's really no TELP available dollars. These are like bond deals. The cap is an arbitrary number.
Got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Portia, it's Al. Would you be kind enough to have your staff prepare a brief memorandum in support of the resolution? You've just given us, you've sketched out, and I think extraordinarily well, as you always do, why we're going to do it. Would somebody put that in writing so that we could actually see it?
Absolutely, Al. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there other questions?
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I would note is that included in the materials are bond sales summaries, which include performance metrics. That's it for me. Thank you.
And we have nothing in your report, Portia, that requires a board approval.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Then we move on to the next agenda item, which is the construction report. Steve, are you there?
I'm right here. He's stuck in quiet. He doesn't do all.
I didn't see you. How are you?
All right, doing well.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Just a quick update on a couple of items here from the construction division. I'll start with statistics from our March monthly report. We added 6 new projects totaling about 55 million. The projects are located at Lehman College, 2 there, Kingsborough Community College. Both of those are CUNY campuses. South Beach PC, an OMH project, and 2 SUNY projects at SUNY Purchase and SUNY Buffalo. We completed 2 projects, both in the CUNY system. One was at Bronx Community College. It was an $8.3 million advanced transportation and technology center project. The second was for various senior colleges associated with local law 11. And if you walk around New York City and you see all the bridges over the building, over the sidewalk bridges, that's local law 11 per New York City DOB. We are on cycle 8 of that. We just completed it. It was about an $18.6 million effort. Construction expenditures in 2001. For the period ending December, we were at 406 million. In 2002, we were at 516 million. That's a net gain of about 110 million. Just quickly, the cover project was from York College, part of the CUNY system. That was a facade and entry door upgrade project. It's about 8.3 million. The scope included the replacement of 4 main entry doors with handicapped access, replacement of 4 guard posts, installation of new turnstiles, and 4 entrances and installation of new surveillance cameras. Our design professional was Superstructures, and PB Contracting was our general contractor. Few SUNY updates. The FIT new build continues to progress. Working on the around a September, October substantial completion date. The building's nearly 100% enclosed at this point. MEP trades as well as framing and sheetrocking are progressing from the basement level up to the 10th floor. At New Pulse, Awasting Hall, the renovation of the fourth floor addition continues. It remains roughly 30 days behind schedule. The contractor has implemented a campaign of extended work hours and weekends for select trades to recover the lost time in order to meet the proposed substantial completion date of July 2023. We have 20 SUNY summer projects that are in pre-construction right now. These are all 2023. They are located at Albany, Alfred, UB, Delhi, Geneseo, New Paltz, and Purchase. The total value is about $30 million. UAlbany, Molly Larkin, who's our Director of Design and Construction for Upstate, and I visited the site last week. The Colonial Quad project continues to advance. They are framing at this point the 3 floors on both sides of the 2 to-be renovated residence halls, and a fair amount of MEP rough-in work is also advanced. And lastly, on SUNY, Alfred's Mackenzie Hall phases 3, B, and C. Work continues to advance by the project surety's replacement contractor. Current project challenge is associated with the connector piece of work. This is a deep foundation, heavy civil piece of work that connects 2 living areas. I most recently visited that project in mid-February. I had a chance to meet with their new president and update them, the president and a few of their staff on DASNY and the progress of that project. On CUNY, just 4 project updates. Lehman School of Nursing. This is a $98 million project advancing towards substantial completion in the 3rd quarter of this year. The Performing Arts Center at Queensborough Community College is also advancing towards substantial completion, targeted for the 2nd quarter of this year, following contractor delays associated with interior ceiling and panel installation. Queens College Louis Armstrong Museum. We should have that one at substantial completion in this quarter. And there just continues to be a very robust portfolio at Queens, Hunter, York, College of Staten Island, New York City Tech, and City College, amongst others. On the CUNY administrative side, DASNY continues to work with CUNY facility staff on advancement of program and project efficiencies. Ruben and I met with CUNY just last week. Their executive management staff took away a number of areas for improvement suggested by CUNY that DASNY will work to implement. And at the next level down, Mike Stabulus and I were informed that CUNY will begin initiating campus meetings to discuss new DASNY managed projects and working on scope, budget, and schedule definitions. Some of those campus meetings have actually been scheduled for early to mid-March. So we're moving forward on something we've longed to have happen. Lastly, on the project updates, OMH, just a heavy project load continues with new projects added again to Rockland, St. Lawrence, and Mohawk Valley, in addition to large capital projects underway at the Capital District Psych Center, Central New York, Western New York, and Mid-Hudson Psychiatric Centers. Following a meeting with OMH on January 24th regarding projects at the Capital District Psych Center, a parking garage demolition and replacement project that we had talked to them about is now underway. We are progressing that under a design build project delivery method, and we've identified the bridging consultant and are working to bring them on board. We continue to work to advance a problem roofing project at Brooklyn Psych Center at this time following contractor termination. And just on the division's administrative side, still recruiting heavily. We've got about 25 open positions now. And on the PM web implementation, this is our project management system. We're beginning to work on closing out older projects in anticipation of migrating projects from our current system, which is Contract Manager, into our new system, PM web. And IS has given the order that that has to happen by the end of this year. That's my update.
Steve, thank you. Other questions for Steve? Have you broadened your recruiting basis?
We actually have, for New York City, which is really the most difficult market to recruit in,
Yeah.
we're beginning to look at Albany and, you know, even as far west as Buffalo.
Really?
Yeah. When I first got to DASNY, we had a number of New York City CUNY-based architects and engineers. And I worked to get them all down here. You know, when someone left, we would replace them down here where the action is. And I can't believe I'm doing this, but we almost have no choice. You know, the market down here is difficult. The private sector, competing with the private sector for this talent is next to impossible. So we are looking, and they're stretched. They're, you know, we're pounding on our consultants because they can't turn stuff around in a timely fashion because they don't have the resources. So I don't know where they all went. But we are trying to do some things differently. We're even considering using our term consultants to do design review for our term consultants, which is
A little tricky.
interesting. But yeah, it's yeah.
It can be good to have like a
Yeah,
peer review
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Have you considered poaching from some of the city agencies that have the, 5-day a week requirement? I don't know what DASNY's are.
Yeah, we're 2-3, 2 at home, 3 in the office. We do get our fair share of interest from some of the city agencies, and we have hired from the city agencies. The thing is, you know, we don't work closely with DCAS, so we don't know who's there to poach. But, you know, that being said, you know, when we do know someone in one of those organizations, we typically make calls. For the higher level positions, I'm making calls to the private sector folks, you know, regularly that I know, so. It's just a tough market right now.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. Are there other questions or comments for Steve?
I have a comment.
Yes.
In my role at the State Education Department, I employ engineers and architects who are the people who do the review for the school district projects we've just approved today. I would request that you not poach them. Organizations do that, and it's very hard on the school districts when their projects are queued up. So feel free to go after the other agencies.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Christina.
Well, if we poach them, we'll take over that work. How's that?
Sure.
Are there other questions or comments for Steve? We have nothing to approve here from your report, Steve, so thank you very much. Great report. We have one more agenda item, and that is the general counsel's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we come into March 1st, I thought it would be appropriate. Oh, we are in March 1st. March is our legislative season. So I wanted to give the board an update on our legislative proposals and the budget process. Just a quick update. So the executive budget was submitted on February 1st. We anticipate that the governor will provide any additional amendments. There's a 30-day amendment period that would occur. If there's any additional proposals that should be included in the executive budget, that should be submitted. We anticipate it to be submitted this week. We don't have a definite date, but we anticipate the 30-day amendments will occur this week. And then the next 2 weeks, the legislature will submit their one-house proposals. So currently within the governor's executive proposal or budget proposal, DASNY currently has 4 proposals that are included and were accepted into the governor's bill, which was our request for authorization to increase the MIFTA bond cap from $17.4 billion to $18.2 billion. Our existing cap is approximately currently as of November 1st, 2022, is at $567.7 million. So we're looking to increase that in the event that we do get a significant transaction that we won't be able to handle if we have to wait for the following year, so that the increase in the cap is necessary. Our second authorization, statutory authorization, seeks to give DASNY the authorization to provide construction, design, planning, procurement, and construction management services to municipalities and other governmental entities that receive grants and loans from the DRI, which is a Downtown Revitalization Initiative program, as well as New York Forward. Last year, we submitted a similar proposal for any entity that potentially gets that authorization. It was not successful, so we've reduced our proposal to just providing those services to local municipalities that get the grant and award. It's not a mandate. It would just be an opportunity to provide support to municipalities that don't have the construction service, the division and department that we do, and to provide them with that service. So we've included that. The next authorization is seeking to extend the MWB Enterprise Pilot Program for an additional 4 years to April 1, 2027. Our pilot program started in 2019, right before COVID. So we really didn't get a chance to fully realize the potential of that program. We were able to do approximately $13 million in contracts for MWBEs, but during that from 2019 to 2023, but we think that the program could be more successful, after COVID, we'll be able to really determine how successful that program will be. It's a set-aside program, so it allows us to provide a percentage of our construction contracts set aside for MWBE. So we were able to provide some contract opportunities and look forward to increasing those opportunities. We are also seeking an extension of our design and construction management services for the Department of Environmental Conservation and Parks. We're seeking that extension from 5 years to April 1st, 2028. And those are our 4 executive proposals. We also noted that there are several proposals that were included in the executive budget that would have a positive impact on DASNY's portfolio. There is $2 billion in capital funding support for SUNY and CUNY. Those investments include $200 million in capital funding for new and renovated research buildings, laboratories, and state-of-the-art instrumentation at Stony Brook University and also University of Buffalo. And there's also $1.5 billion in new funding for capital projects to help SUNY and CUNY campuses maintain their good state of repair and strategic investment for new facilities. We also have in the mental hygiene program, the governor seeks to expand residential programs for OMH. She's investing $180 million in capital to build 2,150 new residential beds for people with mental illness. We also have in the healthcare, $1 billion in capital investment for $500 million in financing capital improvements for eligible healthcare providers. This is part of our statewide healthcare facility transformation grant program, which there was version 1 through 4, and this version 5. DASNY's been working in conjunction with DOH on that program. So that's going to be, there's additional monies and dollars to expand that program again this year. And in Steve's report, and we've previously reported on the Wadsworth Laboratory project, there was a $750 million amount in the previous budgets. In this budget, there's an increase of $967 million. So for a combined $1.7 billion to expand the Wadsworth Center laboratories. It's a reconstruction and consolidation effort. So it's going to be 5 unconnected sites to become 1 connected site. So very happy about getting the possibility of getting that increase so that the project can be completed to its fullest capabilities. In the grant administration area, there's going to be a lot of work in the grants unit. There's another $50 million reappropriation for the nonprofit infrastructure capital investment program, which is out for eligible human service nonprofit organizations. There's a $50 million reappropriation for grants eligible for child care facilities. That's in conjunction with OCFS. We are also working on a grant program for the Veterans Affairs. There's another $5 million grant program there. and then their reappropriation for fundings for the CREST, SAM grant and LOCAP grant programs. So there's going to be a lot of work in the grant area. So generally speaking, council's office is going to play an instrumental role on moving all of these proposals during the budget process. And we're continuing our work and supporting the efforts of all the divisions within DASNY, public finance. We're still going to continue to do that during that period, construction, grant administration, and human resources. And that concludes my report.
Are there questions for Nadine? Nadine, thank you, first of all. It was very, very, very thorough. How do you keep up with all of it?
Enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate knowing the content of your report. Again, are there any questions for Nadine? We have nothing to consider that requires a vote, Nadine, or at least I don't think we do.
This is
Arising from your report.
There will be another report that will be given because hopefully at April 12 at our next board meeting, the budget will be passed and there will be more information. So on our next meeting at April 12th, but I just wanted to give you an update of where we stood before we get the one House raise, and then I'll provide a further update after the budget.
Thank you very much. Is there any other business then to come before this board? There being no response, I assume there is not. May I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
Also move.
Thank you very much, Beryl. Second,
Sure, Al.
who's that?
Jerry,
Jerry, thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your time away.
And just so the members are aware, our next meeting is April 12th. That'll be the full board meeting. The day prior to that, on April 11th, we are planning to hold the governance committee meetings that had to be rescheduled as a result of yesterday's cancellation. So April 11th and 12th are the days to keep in mind for next month.
As well as any finance matters that have to be considered by that committee, Sarah, the day before?
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
Finance Committee will probably meet then as well.
All right.
is that in New York or Albany?
We'll be doing it by video conference again, as we are now from the 3 DASNY offices.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sarah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
I suppose we should vote formally. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Indicate with aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much. The meeting is adjourned.